I'm Vance Bastion here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins for this week's Written on the Edge, Season 8, Episode 23. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing Lee Pulaski's audiobook, White Christmas in the Desert. Then we'll move on to this week's review of the final season of Mrs. Maisel. Favorite show of ours is coming to a close. And then we'll end the episode with what's got our attention this week, so stick around. But now, let's welcome our guest. Was never a long-term plan for Lee Pulaski. He spent many a day imagining bold adventures and playing them out in the quiet countryside of Chino Valley, Arizona. Lee was first published in high school for writing about the news and telling compelling feature stories about people. And while he's still working as a journalist today, his excitement for writing mystery, romance, and fantasy inspired him to write his first novel in 2006, after one particularly breathtaking autumn day. Lee, welcome back to the show.
Wow, that sounded so wonderful. Who wrote that?
I just read what people
Who was that? No.
Wow, my marketing people must be
they're on point. Yes. So I know we've discussed what gave you the inspiration to write, but for folks who haven't heard your first two interviews with us, let's just give a real quick why you decided to put pen to paper after that autumn day.
Okay, well, As we know, at every point, writers experience burnout, and I was kind of experiencing that with my job as a journalist. And so my sister and my brother-in-law convinced me to go on a camping trip with them in the UP of Michigan. And at the time, I was living in Arizona, so that was a bit of a trek for me. But being able to see the fall colors changing on so many trees, I mean, Arizona, you've got desert. In Wisconsin, you've got forest as far as the eye can see. So if you fall in the woods and no one's around to hear you, do you make a sound? But anyway, that convinced me to write a story about northern Wisconsin and having my two main protagonists fall in love with each other, even though they come from different backgrounds. And I haven't stopped writing since.
Yeah, you're 20 books in? 21?
Oh, gosh. Last count is 22 with Night of the Hodag, and I'm working on 23 and 24 right now. So
very nice. So we're here today to discuss Christmas in the Desert as an audiobook. And I know we talked about the book itself on a previous interview, but you've just converted it to audio, and you did the work.
Yes. It's quite different from the way a lot of people do it. A lot of people hire somebody to do the work for them. And being a meager author, I thought, I'm never going to be able to afford this. But I mean, people have been telling me for years when they've heard me read my stories that, you know what, you should do audiobooks. And it took me a while to figure out the process for it. Because, I mean, obviously writing, designing covers, that sort of thing, I know how to do. But working with audio, I mean, you guys are better at that than I am. And so it was definitely a process. I mean, it took several hours for me to realize as I was recording chapter 1 and flubbing lines that well, actually, we can record little bits and piece them together, so you don't have to read the whole chapter perfectly, because that's never going to happen.
True, especially when you're starting out. Retakes are a thing.
Yes. And I mean, it took me, I think, a good 30 hours once I got the mastery of the software to get the book recorded just right. And it wound up being a little over 7 hours, which I was like, wow.
That's significant. So do you have a favorite character voice that you do?
Oh, well, let's see. I think my favorite was Evan, the little 8-year-old boy who tells Santa that he wants a white Christmas. And being to do this little voice and everything and high pitched and sounds so angelic, which is completely unlike me.
That's why it's called acting.
Yes.
And I can see why, because you also get to tap into that childlike joy when you were doing that. And I could see it in your face when you were just doing that voice. All of that joy was there.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely happier now that the audiobook's done. I mean, when I was doing the voices before, it's kind of like, please let this work. Please let this work.
Did you have one that was particularly tough for you?
Well, let's see. I think the toughest one for me was to do Odette, who's a black woman that runs a business in town and stuff. I mean, you got to get the accent just right so you don't tick people off. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, you have to be completely sensitive to what you're reading at that point.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, when you're trying to be inclusive and
Uh-huh.
include black people, Native American people, Hispanic people, that sort of thing, it's easy to do when you're writing it down, but when you're having to do the voices in the book, I mean, that's the whole ball of wax entirely.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Is there anything else you want folks to know about the audiobook?
Well, let's see.
It's
Excuse
out
me.
now.
Yes, it is out now. It came out with it back right before the holidays, in fact.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, it's been out for a few months, and then there's been a little traffic, not as much as I expected. But I know audiobooks are still kind of coming into their own because I mean, everybody still prefers to read the words themselves, and they don't necessarily have the time to listen to a book. I mean, unless they're taking a long trip or something like that.
Right. Well,
Right.
and the marketer in me is like, and remember, start promoting it again as we get close to the next set of holidays because the title itself lends itself to a holiday listen.
Oh yes,
Right.
definitely.
All right. All right. So you just teased me with your two upcoming works. Should we talk about them?
Oh, absolutely. That way we can get the word out so that I can finally finish them up.
All
There you
right.
go.
So one of them, you went back to your home state, Arizona.
Yep. Just like White Christmas in the Desert, I've got one that I'm working on called Heart Song of the Lonesome Road.
Ooh.
Um, One of my main characters is a journalist who was working in Wisconsin, lost his job
Oh
due
no.
to a mishap at the state capitol, and had a friend in Arizona who was living in Arizona, I should say, try to convince him. You know what? Come on out here. I've got a small town newspaper that you can be a part of. You'll have a blast. So he comes out and he packs up his stuff, travels to Arizona, not knowing what to expect. And then he meets a gentleman who runs a bar in town called the Spectrum Saloon, and he's all and the guy is also a singer of sorts. His name's Neshoba, it's a Navajo name. So and he's trying to write this ultimate song, a song that portrays his feelings, his life, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And he's struggling to do that. And he thinks that maybe if he works with Ethan, the journalist, that they'd be able to and put it together and bring it to fruition. So
Very nice. Doesn't sound like
and
there's any.
oh, sorry,
No, say it doesn't sound like there's anything supernatural in this one. Is this purely contemporary romance?
purely contemporary on this one. So
All right.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, I'm taking a break from the fantasy for a little bit, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to come up with more along the way.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was just. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was
Uh,
just curious about the three guys from Night of the Hodags and wondering if you're ever going to continue their story.
I thought about it, but I mean, I'd have to come up with a really good story. I mean, I left them in a pretty interesting place at the end,
Hmm.
and so I mean, I'd need to come up with a really strong plot in order to justify continuing it.
Gotcha. So jumping onto your other work in progress, are the Zachary Gage mysteries your longest running series?
Yes. I started those in 2013, I believe, either 2013 or 2012.
All right.
And I kept writing the mysteries up until the pandemic. And of course, once everything hit, everything went kerflooey. And I started thinking, well, maybe I should take a break from the mysteries because I mean, it was getting tougher and tougher to come up with a mystery that could baffle. I mean, after you've written 10 of them, it's one of those, okay, how do I improve upon this?
Mm-hmm. And you found an idea, I take it.
Yes. This one's taking place right at the end of the pandemic. Problem is, the village of Gresham is still under lockdown and requiring the businesses to stay closed and stuff, and only provide curbside service, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so Zachary is trying to fight back against that, and he's also dealing with the loss of his dog, his longtime companion, and so yeah. So I mean, he's kind of in a shaky place. But then he visits a farm that takes care of both chickens and cats. And in fact, the title of it is "The Tragic Tale um of Henny and Tabby." And the funny thing is, Henny's the one who takes care of the cats, and Tabby's the one who tends to the chickens. So
Nice.
Okay.
And unfortunately, they wind up dead early on. So the question becomes, who would want to kill these wonderful women?
Right. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, and in fact, right now, where I've left it, my main character, Zachary, is trapped in the house as some strange people come around, and he's having to hide in the crawl space. So now I've got to figure out how to get him out of it.
Fun. Very fun. All right. And our third topic is an event. It looked like it just happened, but I do want to talk about it because we're coming into Pride Month, and it is a really cool, super amazing event that's being put on in Appleton.
Yeah. It happened this past weekend. It was called Pride Education, and a lot of the focus was on informing and educating people. I mean, especially those who are not aware of the transgender community, things like proper pronouns and how to refer to people and that sort of thing. And I had applied just to be a vendor to sell my books and make some money. And
Mm-hmm.
but they came back and said, "Hey, would you like to do a reading?" And I'm like, "Sure." Because I don't always get to do a whole lot of readings, so it was kind of nice to do that. And it was at this place called the Grand Meridian, and for some reason I was thinking that it was like some conference center or resort or something. It wound up actually being a banquet hall. And so you had everything in this one spot, the vendors, the workshops, the stage, where you had me reading or musicians performing and stuff. And it was definitely a wild time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
Excellent.
for folks who don't know, the Rainbow Alliance in Appleton is an advocacy group, and they are, for as small of a town as Appleton is, and I went to college there, so I know what I'm talking about, they are phenomenal. They do so much community outreach, and they do so much work with legislators that if you live someplace where you don't have that, look to their methods, look to their style, call them up. Their volunteers are amazing. Ask them how they got started so you can start one in your area because it's truly an amazing group.
Absolutely, yeah. I worked with Mel Davis, and she was phenomenal in helping me get set up and everything. And
Nice.
wound up being a pretty good time, even though people were busy browsing a lot of the vendor booths at the time I was reading and stuff. So I had to project my voice.
Good practice for your narration.
Absolutely, definitely. But yeah, all in all, it was a great time. I sold some books, I made some money, and that's all you can hope out of something like that.
Perfect. So, do you have any events coming up? Like I said, we're rolling into prize season. Are you going to be someplace where people can meet you, talk to you about your books, get signatures?
Yeah, Open Door Pride is coming up in June. It's the 24th, I believe. That's a Saturday.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I'll be doing that again for, second year in a row.
And that's up in Door County.
That's in Door County. That's at Sturgeon Bay at Martin Park.
Okay.
And that runs from 10 to 4, I believe.
Nice.
So, yeah, I'll be doing that again. And hopefully I'll find some other things going on this summer. I was originally going to see if I could do Appleton's Pride Festival, but that's the same day as Open Door Pride. So
Oh, no.
can't be two places at once. It just doesn't work.
Right.
Not yet. Come on, science, catch up.
I know. Well, maybe that could be what my next book could be about. Maybe and maybe
There you
someone's killing
go.
himself. Problem would be if he starts falling in love with himself. That might get kind of weird.
Don't shy away from weird. Not anymore.
Right. That's what makes us queers fabulous.
That's true. That's true. So,
All right. Anything else you want to mention or bring up?
well, let me see. Well, I'm hoping with Heart Song of the Lonesome Road, I'm trying to get it out later this year, but I'm also going to try and see if I can record the audiobook at the same time, because something that I found was going through White Christmas in the Desert when I was doing the recording and stuff. As I was reading the words, I found mistakes that I had and that had been missed through the first round of edits and stuff. So
Yeah.
obviously doing the audiobook at the same time as trying to get the book out might help to make that first product much stronger, much more error-free.
Yeah. One of the best self-editing tools I was taught is before you give it to your editor, read it out loud yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because you will hear your own errors.
Yeah. But anyway, I hope to have Heart Song of the Lonesome Road out in September or October. And I'm going to see if I can maybe get the Tragic Tale of Tabby and Henny out, if not at the end of this year, the first part of next year. So,
Where is the best place for people to follow you and get the updates to when these are being released?
well, probably the best place would be on my website, www.leepulaski.com. That's where I list all my books, and recently had to do a revamp of the site because GoDaddy changed the format. So I had to like redo everything. I couldn't just move this here or this here. I had to revamp everything. So.
Curse you, internet web hosting.
I know. It's like, I had it just fine. Why did you mess it up?
All right. Any final words of wisdom?
Let's see. Well, avoid cactus, because that can be painful. And also, I mean, if you have story ideas, find a way to bring them to fruition. I mean, yeah, I'm not living on a luxury yacht or anything like that, but I mean, it still gives me a lot of pleasure to do this and get my stories out to people and make people realize that there's more than what they see in their everyday lives.
And we are at a time right now in our nation where queer voices need to put as much content out as possible because we are citizens and we have very good stories that nobody's read before. So,
absolutely.
I second your wisdom. People should put their stories out.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't quite get why people are so willing to ban books with LGBT content, because every time you try to ban a book, people are like, well, what is in that book that is so bad? I got to get a copy of it. So, I mean,
That part,
Yep.
right there. That part.
so I mean, the homophobes right now are our best marketers. So,
Yep. All right, folks, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Lee Pulaski for coming back and sharing with us his audiobook and his upcoming works. Lee, thank you so much.
well, thank you both for having me. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. We at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators and new media by content creators who've been on the show before. If you like learning about these artists, please like and subscribe. But now, on to our review.
For a second. 1 second. 1 literal second. What's going on? Are you thinking? Because it looks like you're thinking or passing a stone.
Susie, I have 4 more minutes left. 4 minutes.
Okay.
4 minutes. You hearing me?
Yes, 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. You got 4 minutes.
4.
I am gonna punch you in the nose. I don't care how it will look on TV.
I'm thinking about doing something. Susie, something reckless that could go very badly for both of us.
Yeah?
It could ruin us. Definitely me and you by extension.
Okay.
I just...
60 seconds.
What do you think?
Look, you started your career by getting up on a stage that no one told you to get up on, saying a bunch of shit that no one wanted you to say, so... Tits up.
Tits up.
It's review time. It's review time. That's all you're getting.
Yeah, that's it. We're on a budget.
All right. We're here to review the close of a series that has been near and dear to our hearts since day one. And its ending was perfect. It was exactly what it needed to be, to both give an idea to the future as well as tie up the past. We're talking about The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and from Prime Studios. What do you want to say about it?
First of all, I think the Palladinos need to have a masterclass in character development, dialogue, and conflict because I think they are masters. That couple is a power couple when it comes to writing and producing and directing. They really know their craft. So shout out to Masterclass, like they're watching us. Shout out to Masterclass to definitely get the Palladinos in as a masterclass option because I think people would learn a lot from them between Gilmore Girls and this and Bunheads, which was a very short lived but I thought equally impressive series. The Palladinos just really know what they're doing with their craft. So first of all, I'd like to say that. Secondly, I had a small conversation with my husband after we watched the final episode. And while I liked it, and while I really enjoy the series in its entirety, and I will rewatch this show many, many times, if anything, only just to perfect and hone my skills on character crafting, because there's a lot to absorb in this show. There are so many characters. Every single character is fleshed out down to the movers moving stuff out of an apartment. It's everything is thought out to the nth degree. Extras are just as fleshed out. I mean, you see a housewife and her husband in the audience at the Gordon Ford show, and you kind of know what they're about just by the way they look. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So all the details in that show are exquisite. I really loved the entirety of the series. Having been a huge Gilmore Girls fan before, several of the actors were cycled into this show. Milo was in it, and so was Kelly Bishop, and so they had, and Liza Wheel was also in it. So you had all these actors from Gilmore Girls, and it was nice to see them float in and have that connection to the Palladino realm. The downside, and this is what my husband and I had a discussion about last night, while the show has played with present day and flashbacks and did it beautifully, like an example I'll show here is when Midge Maisel, she's moving out, being forced to move out of her apartment because her husband left her, and then she didn't know that her father-in-law was the one who owned the apartment, not her husband. So he was taking it back. So they show a sequence of her moving out of the apartment, and it's blended beautifully with when she and Joel first moved into the apartment. So there's this beautiful montage that occurs, and they've always done that very well. Again, it's completely thought out, not an ounce is left to chance. It is all beautifully choreographed and executed.
Good morning. Gentlemen. I'll take this one. I'm right here, Mr. Weissman.
Air out a little.
Come on, guys.
Oh, the furniture's in the wrong place.
We'll move it around. I left a diagram for them last time.
We like it. It should have
Those go to the second bedroom, the one on the
The
left.
screen door needs adjusting. I can do that for you, sir. Or someone from the proper department can fix this. Jimmy, it needs to be done right.
Abe, make sure the windows are open upstairs.
All right, got it.
There's no room for that. Just wedge it in. But then move that piece of it. No, don't put it on the couch.
carpeting on
Put
the
it back, guys.
stairs.
We've got to figure this out.
I've already figured this out.
Just put the couch on the chair.
More luggage than last year.
Wait.
Oh, beautiful day.
The luggage is piling up in the kitchen.
Watch the lamp. Watch the lamp.
Was this tree here last year?
Which
I
tree?
think it was there, Papa.
I don't remember
Oh,
this
there's
big
an
tree
extra chair
being
in here.
there.
That's
Can I
why
help you with the tree, Mr.
How
Weissman?
could you possibly help me with the tree? Explain yourself.
I forgot Esther's done.
Just go get more luggage.
Yes, sir, Mr. Weissman. We'll have Jimmy run out for
It'll wet itself. It has to wet itself.
What's the couch doing outside?
It's just temporary.
It'll get dirty out
Oh,
here.
sorry about Joel, Mitch. It's okay, Eliana.
You were getting
Hasn't
lucky.
been fun,
Now
but I'm
you're
just trying to
bringing me
move on.
tomato juice.
Good.
You
You
like
should
tomato
move
juice.
on. Such a cat. There's one too many cooks in the kitchen.
There's a cook in the kitchen.
Watch out! Oh!
Jimmy!
There's tomato juice everywhere.
Get him up!
Where's the couch?
And he forgot the baby. Jimmy, bring him up and the baby.
Why is the couch outside?
I don't know.
Given that, we felt season 5 was disjointed. One of the heaviest criticisms I would lay at the feet of the Palladinos is why they made that choice to do the flip-flopping back and forth in time. When they had 9 episodes, they could have easily done a forward progression up to the final moments that we get at the very end. And they could have even shared a flashback to those 4 minutes, which is the title of the last episode. And that would have played very well. So I don't know why they wanted to do this jumping back and forth. I think it would have been better served if the entire season had been edited in a forward motion with as few flashbacks as possible. So if I'm going to ding them, I will ding them on that more than anything else. I think the going back and forth also, while it gave us some forward thoughts on Ethan and Esther, it was almost a throwaway. And it's the only 2 characters that I really regretted never really got their due. That was the only part that I think they were what I got out of season 5 is I think they were panicked. They knew it was over and they couldn't quite come to grips with how they were going to do it. And I think if they had just stepped back and went, wait a minute, what do we do and what do we do best? And if they had just spent 1 episode of each of the 9 episodes, moving that timeline progressively forward, getting to the point where we end up at the end with Midge and Susie talking long distance and just being 2 old ladies gossiping over a joint view party of Jeopardy and making each other crack up. That, I think, would have worked better than what we got this time around. So season 5 was a mixed bag, but overall the series will be a 5.9 or 10.12. It will be a big number for me for my overall personal score, despite the fact that I may knock it in the directing and the screenwriting for season 5 when I calculate it all in. So.
I need some more bills.
18 Biz Rue du Mail. 18.
Small bills.
Can't find an address. Can you find it? That hat is fabulous.
Hey, small bills.
What? Oh.
Monsieur, chaton, je dois y aller.
Here.
French kind.
Wow, that one's even better.
Hey, will you stop shopping?
Sorry.
Il pleut vraiment là et moi j'attends. Hey, monsieur. Okay. Is this enough?
Vous savez pas compter, vous pouvez pas compter là?
What did he say?
I don't know. I don't speak French.
What do you mean you don't speak French?
I mean, I don't speak French.
All this time with your mother, she never taught you French.
No.
That's the only reason I asked you to come.
Dépêchez-vous là, je dois y aller. Hein.
Okay,
Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome for the tip for D-Day. You pick.
I think this is it. This can't be it. It must be it. Is there a bell?
Maybe we should call.
Does she have a phone?
Does she have a bell?
I don't know.
You've just answered both questions. I'm nervous.
Me too.
What do I say?
I think you should just go in there and be sweet. She's probably homesick by now. She's probably just waiting for you to sweep her off her feet and carry her back to the Upper West Side.
Oh, that's going to be murder on my back. Be sweet. Hey, focus. Focus. Sorry.
That's where I am with it. You?
Like you, the hopping back and forth this season was hard, and it's because previous juxtapositions were not only seamless, but they actually played together. This one
Mm-hmm.
didn't. You'd see something from the future, and then you'd crash into the past, and then you'd crash into something in the future that made no sense and had no explanation, and then it would ruin the crash back to the past because you were still wondering about what you just saw in the future.
Yeah.
So
What did it mean?
yeah. And so the moving scene that you described, there was this beautiful juxtaposition because the two timelines supported each other. And that
Right.
was not the case. In this case, you didn't get the support for something you saw until an episode 2 or 3 later. Too many questions.
Yeah.
Other than that, I am in love with these characters and their crazy lives. And watching them grow up has been enjoyable.
And I think in relation to how we as queer people like to see proper representation for ourselves and the humanization of our own lives and characters and community, I think this series went a long way in fighting anti-Semitism
Hmm.
because it humanized the Jewish experience in ways that I don't think we've seen before at this kind of level.
Right.
I mean, this was a Jewish representation, in my view, of like what the 1950s family comedy shows, sitcoms used to be.
Hmm.
You know, the I Love Lucy's, the Father Knows Best, the George Burns and Gracie Allen show.
The first episode
This
of
was like,
WandaVision.
yeah, this is like the Jewish version of that because it was set in the same time period that those shows took place.
Hmm.
But you got a very human and very relatable set of characters that spanned the gamut, both age, experience, conservative versus liberal. You know, it was everything all thrown in together, and how all these characters clashed and bonded and moved forward and fell back, but it was all beautifully orchestrated. And like I said, this is one of the reasons why I think they should give a masterclass, because one of the things that the Paladinos are really good at is inventing characters that make the landscape extremely interesting.
Hmm.
You know, when I forget the actor's name, I'll fly it here. When the guy who played not Baz, the Jackie, when he passed away, the way they folded that into his character passing away. So
Hmm.
they didn't shy away from any of that. They actually folded it into the show so that the audience members could grieve over a character that they lost, who we lost in real life. So it was a way of honoring that actor's participation in the show without, you know, making it seem trivial or exploitive. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And that's one of the things I loved about the show, is the great care they took. And I listened to a CBS morning spot that they did with Marin and Tony Shalhoub, um, and Marin Hinkle. That's her name. Marin Hinkle and Tony Shalhoub, and who played Midge's parents. And they talked about how, as they got towards the end, they really, really started to sink in for them just how rare this experience was, because everybody got along. It was a very loving environment, supportive environment. All of the actors liked being around each other. They fed off of each other creatively, which is not something you get in every show that you're on. So I think they realized with its closure they were losing something of themselves because they had invested so much into these characters. And you know, there's a reason why it's won as many awards as it has. There really is. And I have to say, I'm glad that we're reacting to the episodes. In fact, I'm wrapping up the first couple of episodes for reactions. So those will be out shortly. And I've noticed that a lot of queer people haven't really taken note of the show. as far as reaction goes. I think we're going to be one of the few out there with some solid reactions to it. So, I think that's bodes well for us to get the show out there to some people, because I think queer people need to really watch this. I think they would be highly impressed with the way that Susie's character developed over the course of the 5 years of the show. You get those feelings from her from the very moment she's on screen, the very first moment she shows up, and her first line, "Fuck!" You just know that's my girl. That's her right there. That's who I'm going to latch onto for the entire run of the series.
Yep.
So,
should we get to our numbers?
Yep. Why don't you go first?
With one exception, mine are fives, because it is a very well thought out, very beautiful, very well produced show, to the point that it is exemplary. And the only one I'm knocking is the writing, because of season 5. It was not handled right. So that's going to be the 4.75. And I have to take all the other seasons into consideration, because we are doing the run. So 4.75 on that one, which I'm still going to give it an overall 5.
I'm going to give mine as an overall 5, like I said before, but I'm going to knock both the writing and the directing to 4.75, because I think someone should have stopped it. But,
that's not how we do this.
Yeah, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Going back to that old meme. But mine will end up with a 5 as well, just from a sentimental point of view, because I really, really loved the show. I loved every character in the show. It was beautifully cast. Whoever was their casting director, spot on, man. If this is one of the shows that proves why there should be an award for casting directors. Mm-hmm. Because people don't give them their due when they can come up with an ensemble that is this rock solid good and add people along the way who fit the formula so well that it seems like they've always been there. That's the most amazing thing. Plus the fact that for the first time, because I used to watch the old Dick Van Dyke shows, and you see, Rosemary and Maury Amsterdam, their characters would often go up to the Catskills and perform. And I never really knew of it, but I never really experienced it. This was the first show that gave me the Catskills experience, mm-hmm. which for me was huge, because it was something that I'd always had in my head, but a piece was always missing. And that's why I say they humanized the Jewish experience, and that gave me that little piece, and it actually made their experience tie to my queer experience, in that we're both oppressed peoples and oppressed communities who have had to create safe spaces for ourselves. So in that respect, I could not be more laudatory about this show. It's truly an amazing show, and I will miss that we don't get any new episodes. So there you are.
Mm-hmm. What are you on about?
Well, I have a couple of things that I'm on about. First one is there's a TV series that's on the Hallmark Channel, of all places. And it has an out gay actor, Jake Foy, and he plays a gay cowboy. And the show's called Ride. And I'd not heard of it before, but evidently it's garnered quite the attention of some queer people, and they're starting to talk about it quite a bit. And there's a wonderful interview with Queerty, Queerty, in case I'm not pronouncing that correctly. But they got an interview with Jake Foy, who plays the actor. And it's kind of cool that the way that he talks about the show and how it's being responded by the community. And, so who knew? Next up, I have and I'll fly the picture up here, but designer has come up with a design that started getting a lot of talk in the queer space, and it just says Pride Month in white, and then it starts to go gray, and as it goes gray, with Pride Month being written over and over again, as you get to the bottom, the outer letters go black, and so you end up with is the word demon, and it's in rainbow, and a lot of the queers are like, can I get this on a shirt? Well, now you can. So I'll be putting the links in the notes about this. So there you go. Lastly, what I'm on about is Zelensky has responded to civil partnerships petition and said that they are working on it. He recognizes that as they move towards the European Union, they need to come into line with the human rights issues. However, he said, don't expect something to happen shortly because with martial law declared, they can't amend the Constitution at the moment. It has to wait until the war is settled or won or what have you. So, but he says they're working on it regardless. They have it in play. It's just there won't be any completion until they can settle the current score of what's going on. So that's what I'm on about this week. You?
My onabouts apparently are all pop culture related. So we've had guests staying with us for a week, and it's been a week of superhero movies and retail experiences, which is not my thing. Not superhero
Right.
movies are, but the retail experiences aren't. So, starting with those, I walked into our local Target here in, well, it was Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, but a village. And the very first thing I saw, first and foremost, was the Pride display. So I know that Target's come under some flack. It was still up here. I think they're probably taking it down in areas that are hotbed contested that aren't at least purple states. So for that, they ought to be shamed, but I was happy to report it was still up here. And then while we were wandering Target, one of my house guests pointed out a Skittles display, and it was for Pride Month. And all of the Skittles were white, but the colors were inside. And so the whole, it matters what's on the inside, not on the outside. I got that, but I turned and looked at him. I'm like, yeah, but they're all still white. So close, Skittles. You almost had it. Almost.
Right.
So moving on to the superhero movies, we watched Quantumania because that hit home video, so we were just able to make some popcorn and watch it here. And it was okay. I mean, Marvel is leaning heavily into the multiverse experience and honkety honk. I can see where they're going with it. I read the comics. I know what's coming ish. I mean, they're obviously might change things for the cinematic universe. But the only representation, and this is the third movie, and it's Paul Rudd, and the only representation that I saw in the whole film is at the end, he's walking down the street having his own internal Welcome Back Kotter monologue, and he walks past a Pride store. That's it. And he was in the quantum verse in a world where they could have played with all kinds of relationships and didn't. At least not that were visible on screen.
Or if you sneezed or blinked, you missed him.
Right, exactly. I mean, there was one entity that was a blob, literally, who was fascinated by other beings that had holes, mouths, ears, etc. He could have, they could have leaned a little bit more into his gender neutrality, and they didn't. So they definitely made him a him. What did we watch next? Oh, we went to the theaters and saw Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Again, enjoyable, but I had a really odd moment. There's a scene where they're trying to sneak into a place, and Mantis makes the big tough burly guard fall in love with Drax. Ha ha, funny, but the gays were the brunt of the joke. Because the big burly guard immediately turned femme, and it was obviously a joke. And again, there was no other solid representation in the film. I was like, really? This is what we're doing?
This is why I am not a James Gunn fan.
Mm-hmm. So the third example, though, and my win for the week, was Shazam, of all things. Fury of the Gods, the most recent one. Lucy Liu, Helen Mirren as villains. Epic! But Pedro, one of the Shazam family, came out to his family. And in a very beautiful moment, they all looked at him and said, "We know." And they said it from a point of love, not a snarky place.
Right.
He wasn't put down for it. It was a, "We know, we love you. Let's go hit the big bad now."
Right. Ice creams all around later.
Kudos to DC for getting that right.
Mm-hmm.
So now there is a prime member of the, and the reason that's important is the Shazam family has joined Wonder Woman as the only gods on DC's universe right now. So they are, and Wonder Woman made an appearance and called them deities. So there is a gay deity in the DC universe right now. Kudos. That's my win.
Yeah, we'll see if they last through James Gunn.
I'm very aware of what you're saying, but it's on screen today.
Yeah. No, I get. I'm happy. I'm happy for it. But again, not looking forward to what's coming. A lot of people are excited. I'm not. I'm really not. I'm actually very worried. So, all right.
Your turn. Who won your week?
So rather than just say who won my week, I'm going to share a bit of video with it. This is from the Young Turks, who are going to tell a bit about it. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'll play enough so people get an idea of what's going on here. And it's just a lovely story about a grandson and grandmother who reconnected and how he realized that she had lived her whole life in a small Ohio town and always dreamt of going places and never got to. So at the age of 85, I think is when they started.
Okay.
He decided he could not live with himself if he didn't do something about it. So he spent the next several years taking his grandma around, and she got to see oceans and mountains and things she had never seen before. And where she ended up was really quite amazing. So I'm going to play you a little bit of it just so people get I guess this was done actually on the PBS NewsHour, and TYT is just rebroadcasting that. So shout out to PBS NewsHour for bringing the story to everyone's attention.
3-year-old woman and her 41-year-old grandson have officially completed their 7-year quest to visit every single national park in the United States, and that's 63 parks. And this is really a heartwarming story about an adventure, a family forming new bonds, and also the power of nature. I love this story so much.
Yeah, I love this story too, but I think to me, the best part of the story is how she lived to be 93 years old, which we're gonna get to in a minute.
Yes, okay, so who is she? The 93-year-old we're speaking of is Joy Ryan, who was living in Ohio, and she has led an incredibly difficult life. So let's start with that to kind of give you context into how wonderful her trips with her grandson happened to be. So she worked a minimum job at a local deli well into her 80s, which by the way, a lot of Americans are in that category. She was widowed nearly 30 years ago. 2 of her 3 sons died in middle age, and at the age of 85, she had never seen a mountain or an ocean. Okay, unbelievable. So in 2015, Joy and her grandson Brad they had been estranged for nearly a decade following Brad's parents divorcing. It was a tough divorce, an ugly divorce apparently. Brad said he felt betrayed equally as my mom felt betrayed, while his grandmother tried to support her son, Brad's father. So apparently, Brad took his mom's side, and since his grandmother is his father's mother, they were estranged for some time. Okay, but at his sister's wedding, they managed to reconnect and reform their bond, and now he's part of his grandmother's life again. Once Joy told Brad about her dream of seeing the world, he knew that he could, play a role in that and that he wouldn't regret it, that it would be a really great adventure with his grandmother. He wanted to help his grandmother achieve this dream. And so let's take a look at this video and we'll give you more details about what happened next.
When I learned she'd never seen the great wildernesses of America, deserts, mountains, oceans, you name it, I thought that was something that would haunt me if I didn't intervene in some way. The more I kept reading about the parks and I saw how close they were to one another, that we could make this giant loop, it became an obsession. And all I could think about was, I've got to see Grandma Joy at Old Faithful, and I've got to see her at the Redwoods, and I've got to see her at the Grand Canyon. I have to do this. I have to have those memories for my own long-term happiness. I think we're 2 peas in a pod when it comes to just our desire for travel, adventure, connection.
That's who won my week. I just think it's an amazing story. And they ended up where they ended up was in a national park in American Samoa. So they ended up which is the furthest park within the United States framework of national parks. And they even gave her a certificate, and they held a big, dinner for them. So it was kind of nice. And I just think it's a wonderful feel good story that people are, being able to see how you can connect with your relatives while they're still alive, and how they can do something rather than just be the passive person in somebody's wish. They can say, you know what, I can do something about this. I can take care of it. And I did something similar with my mother. My husband and I took her to England, we took her to Denmark, and we took her to Russia. So it does something for you. It's good for your spirit if you're able to help someone like this and give them something that they've always dreamed of doing but never did, for one reason or another. So when I saw this, I couldn't help but relate it to my own experience of taking my mom on a trip like this. So I'm just wanting to spread the love and show something that was quite joyous. And I really give Brad Ryan props for hearing his grandmother and taking the initiative. And now he has memories that he will talk about for the rest of his life. So well done, Brad, and Joy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And there's a wonderful clip which I'll show at the very end of our show. I'll have it up the end credits if you want to watch it. It's kind of cute. She actually goes up on the dunes in one of the national parks, and he made an offhanded comment about her. Oh, why don't you stroll down the dune? That's exactly what she did. She laid down on the ground and rolled all the way down. And he was like, oh. And then she got up after. She said, well, it was just, why wouldn't you?
Excellent.
You go, Grandma.
Excellent.
She won my week.
Any final words of wisdom?
Nope, that's it. It just warmed my heart to no end. So I wanted to give that to people as a send-off for this week.
Perfect. We at Written on the Edge are proud to produce this video, these videos. We're proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. We're going into Pride Month, hence my use of the word proud a lot, but I mean it. Because we're doing this as a service, so please help us help others. Support our YouTube channel. If you can help us on Patreon, we've added a $2 level, just $2. Helps us keep the lights on, helps us pay for software, equipment, that sort of thing, so that we can keep bringing you these amazing artists and creators. All right, this show is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. Tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
One more?
Bye.
Perfect.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.